everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the weekly windup of the 17th edition of the IPL with your hosts. I'm Pranav, and this dashing gentleman here is BG, ready to wax some cricketing lyrical your way. It's been an action packed week, as you'd expect from the biggest blockbuster tournament in T20 cricket, setting records in and out of the game. The IPL so far has been viewed by 80 billion. It's been viewed for 80 billion minutes around the world, 20% higher than previous editions of at this stage. We've seen in excess of 300 sixes in only 17 matches, 41 more than last year's IPL at this stage. The highest total by any IPL team was scored last week. We almost saw that record being broken this week. It boasts some of the most exciting star-studded lineups, and that's besides Sonu Nigam, Tiger Shroff, and Jay Shah. So strap in as we plan to go over all the highlights of the week. If you're new to the channel and like what we do, give this video a like and subscribe to Bales and Tales as we share our love for this beautiful game with all of you. Also, smash the bell notification icon to be notified of our weekly drops. With that being said, let's look at how the teams fared at the end of last week. BG, it seems like some teams got off to a flyer. Some of them haven't yet found their groove. They seem to be kind of tinkering with the combinations. Who do you think has the steepest hill to climb this week?
So looking at the table, you would have to say, it's the RCB and the Mumbai Indians. And it's an interesting one because Mumbai Indians are notoriously slow starters. And so some of it doesn't, I suppose, come across as a surprise. But having said that, there's been a lot going on off the field in the Mumbai Indians camp. So, there are other reasons as to why perhaps they've started slowly. But, they obviously have a lot to prove, moving forward in the tournament. And yes, the RCB as well. We it's hard to say whether we're used to this or not, but I suppose they haven't really found the right combinations yet. They've started off a little too slowly in select games, and they haven't quite found the right balance in their side as well. And so, still early days, but looking for a much better showing from the RCB as the tournament progresses.
Yeah, RCB definitely has a lot to prove. Mumbai has kind of run out of their excuses. Chennai's got a couple of games. Kolkata's flying high. I think this is a pretty good one. Excited for this review. So let's dive into what I thought would be a real blockbuster last week when we ended the first episode. Mumbai RR at the Wankhede. I said it would be high scoring. It was, anything but. The toss was kind of a big thing. Sanjay Manjrekar was the harbinger of good behavior at the toss. A lot of booing for Hardik Pandya again. A little unfortunate. It seems like the supporters are not really backing their team as much. The same can't be said for RCB really. Sanju Samson took a catch that resembled the one that Dhoni took last week, but didn't have the casting to make it the headlines. A lot of good catches, actually. Ashwin took a good diving one. Shimron Hetmaya at point took a bit of a blinder,
That was a blinder, yeah.
That was a good one. Robin Powell took a pretty good one in the deep. This RR outfit just keeps getting, I think, more rounded with every game. Quick shout out to Akash Madwal, who took a bunch of wickets this game. He came in last season and had like an average of about 15, and he seems to be continuing his good form. But yeah, Mumbai gets skittled out for 125 for 9 in their 20 overs, and RR sweated a little bit, I think you could say. They were, about 4 down at one point. But yeah, seemed to get there in the end. Some pretty mature performance from Riyan Parag. Yeah, what did you think? Where did you think Mumbai fell short this time?
I think the problem for Mumbai was obviously the start they had, right? Where one of their ex-players, Trent Bolt, devastating swing bowling up front, right, reduced them to 14 for 3, and it's just very, very tricky playing Trent Bolt, especially if you're a right-hander, because he swings the ball in late and with pace, and so you feel like he's attacking those pads, and then the next thing he can nick you off outside off, right? As Rohit Sharma found out, and so I think the early damage was something that Mumbai obviously had to recover
What's
from.
that record of first wicket over, like first over wickets, right?
Yes,
Tallied up to
yes,
25
yes.
now. Yeah, tough
It's
stuff.
incredible. I mean, if you have somebody who's going to take wickets at that rate, right, then you're setting yourself up for success, right? So, that was great stuff by Trent Bolt. And, there was a period where Tilak Verma and Hardik Pandya kind of consolidated and looks like they were going to get something reasonably competitive. But then our old friend Yuzi Chahal, ensured that any slight change in momentum, maybe towards Mumbai's side, was cut short right there. Right, he took 3 wickets, and that kind of put an end to any hopes for Mumbai of reaching a challenging total. And what can I say about Riyan Parag? As you put it, he's turned up almost every other game, right, so far. Every game actually. Continued his fine form, very mature 54, shepherded the chase and ensured that there was no panic stations. And at the end, yes, there was a little bit of jitters in the middle order where they kind of Mumbai were in with a sniff at one point, but then Riyan Parag, I guess, quickly put that to bed and saw them over the line. And I just think eventually, if you look at what went wrong for Mumbai, it was just probably a case of losing too many wickets early, and then that one partnership aside, they were never really able to get things going with the bat. Right. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, pretty straightforward stuff there for RR. It wasn't a foregone affair, but ended up being, one of those games. Yeah, like you said, Chahal's bowling performance really went under the radar. But I think Trent's initial heroics, scalping three of the top order like super early, got him the man of the match as well. Well, I don't know where to begin with this game, to be honest. But I guess we could start with the 3,000 runs, something positive for the opponents before we talk about where RCB failed. I'm talking about RCB LSG. LSG was put into bat. We've been winning the toss even, and that's the disappointing part. It's like things are kind of going for RCB. They're kind of like it's not really that things aren't going. We don't have injuries. We're winning the toss. We've been doing pretty well, luck wise at least, but not quite putting up the performances. It's just been Kohli's been in form, but that's basically it. um, anyway, so LSG score 181 for 5 in their 20, and Quinton de Kock in his 100th game crosses 3,000 runs. He scores 81 blistering knock off just 56 balls. Nicholas Puran puts the finishing touches on their innings. Glenn Maxwell bowled pretty well. Did a good job where he's not expected to. Seems to be trying to pull off some unusual roles, but we'd prefer it with the bat, Maxi. In reply, RCB really never got going until Mahipal Lomror came in at the end, and hit a few big ones, promising signs for Lomror, but really never was enough for a total that probably should have been chased down.
No, I agree. No, I agree. I think, on the face of it, 180 at the Chinnaswamy is something you would probably take, right, as the fielding side, especially if you're chasing there, because you almost feel like, given the small size of the boundary, you feel like 200 is the bare minimum, right? Um, and so I think to your point, yeah, Quinton played a really quick fire 81. I think, he probably lasted till about the 15th or 16th over. I don't quite remember. But having said that, he was there and he scored his runs at a reasonably brisk pace, right? But I also did feel like the RCB bowlers up to, sort of in that middle overs phase, right, were able to sort of contain the run flow. And it did look like we were going to restrict them for even less than
Mhm.
180, the 180 they got. But, unfortunately, Puran went gung ho there right at the end. And I don't think we bowled the best lengths to Puran as well. There was no variation. too many full tosses, too many full balls outside off stump, easy pickings for a destructive batsman like Puran. And so at the end of the day, I think we probably conceded about 15 to 20 runs more than we thought we would in that middle sort of phase. Although, again, there's no reason why we shouldn't have been able to, chase and make it a lot more competitive than, what it ended up being. And as far as the chase is concerned, we've seen this movie before, top order woes as usual, and as a result of the top order woes, and no one really sort of batting deep, right? Except Kohli on a few occasions, we've often left the lower middle order with too much, and they can't bail us out every game, right? It was nice to see Lomro get the runs he got, but in the end, it didn't really end up mattering a fair bit, right? And I think the call out from an LSG perspective, I want
I've been
to give,
waiting.
yeah, I want to give Mr. M. Yadav a significant amount of credit. I mean, this guy is an exciting bowler. For those of you who haven't watched him bowl,
If
I
Mayank
really suggest
Yadav
you.
was not on your radar last week after that performance, he certainly is this week.
Absolutely, absolutely. So for context, he's taken 6 wickets now in the two matches, and it's not just the fact that he's taken wickets. The raw pace at which he bowls. This guy is hitting speeds of 150 plus, almost four balls out of six, right? Almost every four balls out of every six balls, right?
And this
And
is to an Australian batsman, like a team
absolutely.
that has been known for like having high pacemen, like they have like
Mhm.
bowlers of super high speeds. During our day, the people we knew, I mean, there was never an Indian in that conversation, and I think that's kind of the most exciting thing, right? It was Brett Lee, Shoaib Akhtar,
Mhm.
Shane Bond, and then like
Mhm.
of course the more recent like Mitch Stark and everyone now, but like there was never really an Indian quick in there. I hear that Australia has more of them lined up. There's a certain wild thing supposedly, Lance Morris. Yeah, but like more to come. I think from him, we'll definitely do a segment at some point. But yeah,
Yep.
exciting stuff.
Very exciting, and obviously bodes well for India, right? Moving forward, if this guy is able to really figure out his body a lot better as he gets used to the rigors of cricket as a whole, right? And yeah, so I mean, he was arguably the find of the tournament so far from a bowling standpoint, if you ask me. Um, but yeah, I suppose to round up things, just a poor showing again by RCB at the top of the order doesn't quite help that Maxwell and Faf haven't quite found their feet yet. And as a result of that, you cannot expect Virat Kohli to get runs every single game, right? I mean, and this was one of the matches where he happened to not get runs, right? And as a result of that, again, too much pressure on the lower middle order. They can't bail you out all the time, and eventually that costs you, and it gets you or catches you somewhere. And we found out the hard way.
We sure did. Yeah, the scary thing I think for RCB fans is that their underperforming players aren't the end of their problems. There are some gaps in this team, but we will stop the RCB therapy right there, I think.
Absolutely.
And
How much time do we have? uh,
so moving on, KKR DC.
hmm.
While the previous game had the cricketing king, the next game was graced by the presence of royalty of a different craft. King Khan was present
Mm.
at the KKR DC game in Vizag. King Khan that seems a little more mellow. He seems, not the owner of the Knight Riders that we've seen in the past years that had certain incidents being banned from
Certain
stadiums,
incidents.
things like that.
Full overboard with the dancing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but being a good dad, maybe
Yeah.
maybe we shouldn't be too hard on the king.
Mm-hmm.
But he seemed mellow. He seemed almost like apologetic in a way about how well
Mm-hmm.
KKR did this
We
season,
got it started. Absolutely.
and boy, did they do well. you know,
Oof.
272 for seven. KKR batting first. Sunil Narayan, I think he heard me last week talk
Mm-hmm.
about him not having it with the bat.
And he took
Running
that
away
personally.
from the ball was my phrase. I need to tip my hat to you, sir. That was a squashbuckling, exhilarating, scintillating performance from Sunil Narayan. 85 from 39 balls. Set up this game for KKR rather well. And then, you would expect that there would be some of the names that you know come in and score some runs. And we had Ankrish Raghuvanshi come in, 18-year-old. You may not be familiar with the name, but boy, was he familiar with this game. He scored an absolutely brilliant 54 of 27 balls. Um, some usual stuff from Andrik Nokia. I'm going to leave that to you, Bhargav. But, in the chase, DC never really got going. Pant, again, super happy to see him score runs, 55 from 25. The wicket keeping action of the Indian team is really thick with
A lot of
amazing knocks
preparation.
from everyone who's been doing well. We have Pant
Yeah.
Sanju, KL Rahul, Ishan Kishan. They're all, scoring runs. This is going to be absolutely a nightmare for the selectors. But, Delhi didn't really ever, come close in this game. Yeah, what did you think, my man?
Yeah, in agreement. I think the KKR batting has been, sort of the batting unit of the tournament so far, right? I think you have a bunch of people who are capable of taking the game away from the opposition on any given day, right? It almost feels like Sunil Narayan at the top of the order is a bonus for KKR, right? Like if he ends up clicking on the day, then you know as an opposition that it means trouble, right? Because of the talent that they have below him, right? Where he's not supposed to be the guy who goes big, right? So it's almost a bonus. But 85 of 39, incredible knock. Constantly put bowlers off their lengths, and it's a very simple approach. He doesn't have necessarily the variety that makes bowlers significantly alter their lengths, but he has this great ability to time the ball well, right? Like, and if you bowl on the stumps, you're going to get carted, right? Like it's as simple as that. So yeah, it definitely worked out for him. But the story of the innings, as you mentioned, was Ankrish Raghuvanshi, right? Remember, he's only 18 years old. Very calm, very composed innings, very few loose shots, always felt in control, and just played with a maturity well beyond his years and experience, right? And I think he's really someone we ought to be looking at, moving forward in this
It's just
tournament.
a new one every week. It's a new one
Yep,
every game,
there's a
right,
new
BG?
one.
It's hard to keep track of the talent.
Absolutely. And it's the most incredible thing for the IPL and for Indian cricket moving forward, right? These are truly exciting times, and we're blessed with, riches of talent, right? So great stuff by Ankrish. And, at the end of the innings, everyone's, I guess, used to Rinku and Russell just going berserk and just butchering teams. And this is exactly what they did. And, ended up propelling them to an absolutely incredible total. I believe it was just shy of the actual record, right? I think it was 5 or 6 runs.
Yeah.
So
And they had a pretty quiet last over. Like it was,
yeah, yeah, that was actually some respite. That's like a moral victory, if you will, for Delhi.
yeah,
But I
it's
think
the
what.
kind, as RCB fans, we will happily take.
Absolutely, absolutely, the moment. But no, I'm in agreement there, and I think again, Delhi, a simple case of wayward bowling, unimaginative bowling, it's just loose balls, right? And I think Andrik Nokia has been a bowler for Delhi in particular that has been dished out a fair amount of punishment. Just seems like his death overs bowling, right, has suffered in particular. There were times in the last, I think it was between 2020 to about 2022, his average economy rate in the death overs was at around 7.9. And, so far in the IPL, it's gone up to about 12.2 or 12.3. And so that clear difference in one of the strike bowlers' performances has obviously affected Delhi, right? And, I guess, when it comes to sort of the batting, right? Rishabh Pant and Tristan Stubbs played very good knocks as well, right? And there was a little bit of top order fragility as well, which forced Rishabh Pant and Tristan Stubbs, to play sort of out of their skin to, get the knocks that they got, right? They both hit 50s, but at the end of the day, let's be real, they never really threatened to make it a true contest, right? And I think it's just a recurring theme, right? Like there's been too much of inconsistency at the top of the order for Delhi so far. And, I think Mitchell Marsh, a lot was expected of him. I know he hasn't, I mean, but now he's injured and he has a hamstring injury. But I just think, they just left themselves too much to do at the end. And it was just a daunting total. So, yeah.
Yeah, totally on board with that. And I think a lot of the games this week you will see were pretty much, walkovers in a way. They didn't really provide the contest that, you're kind of seeking in the IPL. But that can't be said for the next game. GT versus Punjab was definitely a bit of a nail biting one. GT scores a good, gets to a good total. Shubman Gill comes to the fore. 89 not out of 48 balls. Aptly, supported by a name that we say quite a bit now. Sai Sudarshan, 33 of 19. Taking even Rabada to the cleaners at times. Harpreet Brar, we got to mention him because he doesn't get mentioned enough. Like, put in a good 4 overs as well, reasonable.
Mhm.
Got a scalp, just 33 runs. Always seems to be economical. Um, but yeah, but this match was really all about the chase, wasn't it? Um, Punjab being what they were 70 for four in
Mhm.
the ninth over or so,
Yep.
and in comes Shashank Singh to the crease. Shashank Singh, who's been involved in a lot of trolling, actually. He was at the auction. So the story about this is at the auction, the owners of Punjab, Preeti Zinta and Neswadia, while they picked him up for base price, which is 20 lakhs, um, in fact tried to retract their bid. I can't believe that even happened. Like, that's the craziest thing. And of course, later on they had to. They didn't have to. The story is that they had two names, by the names of Shashank Singh on their list, and that caused some confusion. And they put out a tweet saying, they were very happy to have him. And you know, God might they be happy after this game because Punjab was nowhere close. He comes in, scores a 61 of 29 balls, not out, takes them to the end with a little bit. No, well, not a little bit. That was quite a lot of support from Ashutosh Sharma as well. The equation was definitely almost beyond reach at that point, and scintillating knocks from the two of them.
Agreed. Agreed. As I put it, will the real Shashank Singh please stand up? We weren't quite sure. I mean, there was a lot of drama surrounding that incident as well, and it must have been tough for the guy as well, right? Because I'm sure he was constantly reminded, of the mistake, right? And it was obviously a great way for him to silence the critics, right? Because to your point, he did enter, the crease when they were in a fairly perilous position, and the game, to be fair, at that point was could have gone either way, but people were favoring Gujarat, right? Because of the unknown, because of the element of the unknown, right, with Ashutosh Sharma and Shashank Singh. But what happened after that was truly fantastic, right? We have to remember that Ashutosh Sharma was also the impact player as well, right? And it's always great for a team when the impact player pays off, right? So he had 31 of I think 17, so he did score at a canter, and he was able to get some of the momentum back, wrestle some of that momentum back, right, to Punjab. And I can't really fault Gujarat, at least from a batting standpoint, right? Because I think to your point, Shubman Gill and Sai Sudarshan, who's been the ultimate model of consistency. You know how much I love Sai Sudarshan. I really rate this guy. Vital cog in their success story so far, right? But I just think maybe it would have been a hard one to swallow, given the way they lost that game, right? Because they felt like they had it under control. So yeah, Punjab will be mighty proud of that, and Shashank Singh will be feeling a lot more wanted, right, and a lot more. He'd be feeling a sense of relief, obviously, right, because I'm sure there was a lot of heat on him from that standpoint, right? Um, Apart from that, yeah, I think you did make a couple of good call outs, right? I think from a Punjab standpoint, also, like, the form of Shikhar Dhawan in general has been sort of pretty good, right? Like, he's made a
Mhm.
couple of good knocks at the top of the order, and Sam Curran as well has chipped in, right, with both the bat and the ball in select scenarios, and Brar has again kept things nice and tight, right? He doesn't go for too many, right? We know that all too well. But I think from a Gujarat standpoint, the one person I'm looking at a little bit, just in terms of what he's done in the past, is Rashid Khan, right? I know it's still early, But having said that, we're used to two things, right? Rashid Khan generally doesn't give more than about 25 runs, right? And on top of that, he always takes about 2 wickets. So he hasn't quite damaged the wickets column, right? A whole lot so far. And he's gone for a few more runs than I thought he would. But again, still early days. So I'm looking, it's going to be interesting to see how the tournament pans out for him moving forward.
Yep. Gujarat Titans definitely need to put in some hard yards. But here's something you don't say often: tame performance from Chennai in the next game against SRH at Hyderabad. So not much done from the batters in their entire innings. Chennai only ends up getting about 165, 5 wickets down. Not a lot of contributions from many of the batsmen except our homegrown, and when I say our, I mean the RCB homegrown hero Shivam Dubey. Scores 45 of 24 balls. Ajinkya Rahane chips in, but didn't really have the strike rate to really get them going. Solid performance from the veterans. Bhuvaneshwar Kumar and Pat Cummins kept things extremely tight. There was not a lot of loose bowling at all. It was tough going there out there for CSK this game. And SRH gets a much needed wing that keeps them outside of the bottom group. Also good runs from Aiden Markram in the chase. With him coming to form, this SRH team really looks pretty scary. Um, there was a blaze, a flash from Abhishek Sharma that made the already small total looking much smaller. And Travis Head again, ever reliable it seems these days. Um, Chipped in with a decent 31 of 24 as well. Um, so, what do you think these guys are doing right? Like, it seems to be, especially I think in the batting department, and now it seems like the bowling department's also coming to the fore. This SRH team looks pretty good, doesn't it?
Yeah, they do. I think to your point, the batting has been a bit of a surprise. If I'm being honest, I know they did bring in Travis Head right this time around, and we know what a fantastic year the guys had, right? But for me, and I've this is not a secret, but I'm a huge fan of Abhishek Sharma, and I think he's been one of the main reasons the SRH middle order has been able to play with a lot more freedom than if they were to lose. Then say if they were to lose early wickets, right? Then they would have then it would have been a different story. The reason I say that is Abhishek Sharma currently is striking at I think its strike rate so far is 210.7, which is absolutely ridiculous. And mind you, he's made runs. It's not just a case of, like 50 runs, like overall in the tournament, right? So he's made a fair, I think it's 160 runs. So my point is he has been one of the main reasons, and Travis Head, of course, why, they've been able to get off to rapid starts, right? And I think if we talk about this match specifically, I think the pitch was a little bit tricky, right, for starters, right? So CSK, a couple of the batsmen got starched, but Shivam Dubey aside, none of them were really able to, take the handbrake off. Right? So it was just one of those days where you needed to kind of grind it out, and the SRH bowlers really looked to bowl into the pitch, right? Because it was a little bit on the slower side. And so, barring that quick fire 40 odd by Shivam Dubey, it was always difficult. But to be fair to them, CSK did, set up a reasonably competitive total, right, of 165. But then I think the Abhishek Sharma innings really, gave Hyderabad all the momentum they needed, right? 37 of 12. I think he took 27 or 28 in one over of Mukesh Chaudhary. So that was he went gung ho right from the beginning. And I think Travis Head got a little bit of luck. He was dropped off the second ball of the innings at slip, but then chipped in with a useful 30. But I think a lot of credit deserves to go to Aiden Markram. Right, played a very sensible innings, and helped shepherd the chase, and it's his first 50 of the tournament as well, so it's nice to see him in and amongst the runs. And I think they were able to see it out fairly comfortably in the end, right? So it's here's an interesting stat, by the way. make of it what you will. But in all four matches, including this match, SRH have batted their top seven batters have reached double digits each time.
Hmm.
Now I'm not putting a lot of stock in an innings of 10, but that's reasonably telling, right? Considering a lot of them have chipped in with useful 30s and 40s and at ridiculously good strike rates. So that's been sort of the pillar stone. Yeah.
Yeah, they've certainly taken this IPL by storm, snatching the highest score away from our near and dear RCB. The same can't be said in terms of the batting lineup about this next team, and I've already given it away. It's RCB. Um, but let's start with something positive. That was a glorious 100 from Virat Kohli. I think RCB needs to build him a shrine in his honor, for he's the sole light in a dark tunnel that we often find ourselves in. But this the thing about that really stood out about this innings was how effortless it was. It feels like Virat Kohli is like this gift that just keeps on giving. It feels like he's unlocked like a new level to his batting. It doesn't seem like he's like trying too hard now. And I feel like the shot of Avish Khan that he hit off his slower bouncer over the head of short third man, the way he did that, like when you're trying to go really hard, you tend to try to hit that in front of square, and you don't get the connection you need, and it can generally go to the hand. And I feel like a Virat Kohli of the past may have done that with the pressure that's on him. He's always trying to push the ante, up the onus, get runs quickly. But I thought this innings was near flawless. um, but the night was stolen by another Centurion. 600 for Joss Butler. I mean, this RR team looks so scary now that Joss is is entering the fore. I mean, they've had like the likes of Rian Parag, who's carried them. They've had Sanju Samson play some good knocks, managed to chip in with a pretty good one this game too. Wicket keeper spot, man. Don't know what to say about that. But this team seems like one to watch. RR chased down the target of 183 that RCB set fairly easily. Joss Butler on the last ball with one run required to win. Not the last ball, first ball of 90th over, but the last ball of their innings, ends up hitting a six and getting to his 100 and really stealing that game, or stealing the spotlight from Virat. I think the game, was stolen by the RCB bowlers away from the batters, as it happens often. But yeah, can't wait to hear your thoughts, PG. How was that? How did that go to you?
Yeah, where do we even begin? Firstly, yes, full props to Kohli for an insane innings again. But I don't want to take away any credit from him. But having said that, I do want to call out some of the other RCB batsmen and how unfortunately nobody else was able to give him the support he needed, right? Because and we can take like hours to talk about this, right? But at the end of the day, I think there have been debates about whether Kohli scored quick enough, right?
Mm,
Because some people looked at the time it took him to get to that 100, and then there are a lot of debates these days about how many balls you bat, right? Say you have somebody who bats through an innings, right, and bats about 60 to 70 balls. There are a lot of debates about how much they need to be striking at, right? And so I've seen criticism from certain quarters, but at the same time, I do need to criticize players like Faf and Glenn Maxwell for not providing Kohli with the ample support he needed, right, to probably play a lot more freely, right? And I think I don't want to be overly critical, but I have to, at this point, I think RCB did miss a trick when they sent debutant Saurav Chauhan.
mhm.
When we had lost our second wicket, Glenn Maxwell, another failure. But I do think we missed a trick given but really it's two things, right? So one is DK has obviously been having a good time of it, right, with the bat. And so I do feel that he had the opportunity to come a lot earlier and, sort of play that finishing role. And also, it was a weird one considering Mahipal Lomror had a good outing, right, last time around. It was weird to see that we dropped him, one, because of his form, and two, given the fact that he was playing on his home ground. And so you'd assume that this is a guy who's fairly familiar with his conditions, right?
Mhm.
So that was a decision that didn't quite make sense. And also, given that we were 110, I think it was in 11 overs, it's disappointing to see that we ended up with what seemed like a fairly unsatisfactory total of 183, just given the position we were at. Again, don't want to take away any credit from Kohli. Incredible knock. But having said that, this is a team game at the end of the day. And so I do think we fell short, although it was competitive, granted. And then, with the Royals as well, it was nice to dismiss Jeswal early, right? But then Josh Butler and Sanju Samson gave us an absolute lesson, right, in going through a chase, right, and timing a chase well.
Mm.
Our bowlers just didn't bowl well enough to, even mildly threaten, right, at any point. I think Topley bowled okay, but
He bowled pretty well.
yeah, he
Pretty
did
well,
bowl well.
to
He
be
did
fair.
bowl well. Yeah, I'm being harsh. Sorry about that. I mean, I did mean he bowled well, but ultimately, I think we just didn't have the right variety, and I think it's cost us, right? The fact that we didn't plan going into the season to have like a frontline spinner, right? And so that's um, unfortunately turning out to sort of bite us. And Josh Butler and Jeswal are two people who probably hadn't made too many runs for RR, right, so far. But it looks like Josh Butler's back in the thick of things after this latest swashbuckling 100 of his. And yeah, you want to say something about that?
No, I mean you didn't have to come back with 100, Joss. It could have been a 50. Could have
Uh-huh.
been you could have let Rian Parag continue his form. Like this is yeah, but he did it against our not so good bowling attack, like you mentioned. Spin is definitely a big hole in this team.
I
And
will
I
say
agree.
one
Like
thing. I will say one thing, just because you mentioned spin. I think one of the greatest decisions the RR franchise made was buying Chahal and Ashwin in the 2022 mega auction, because they have more than delivered. I think the two of them, ever since 2022, they have bowled the overs that they've bowled at an economy rate of less than 8. And Yuzi, I believe, has gotten about 56 wickets. And Ashwin has obviously not gotten as many wickets, but he's done it at an incredible economy rate, like I mentioned. And he's also chipped in with the bat, the 300 runs since then.
what
So,
doesn't he do?
yep, what doesn't he do? I just thought I'd add that. Well done, RR.
Yeah, definitely well done, RR. Rest of the RCB batting lineup. Come on, help this guy out. He needs a little hand. Faf, you could have played a little faster, I think.
Yep.
Well, moving on to the Super Sunday, Mumbai Indians kicked it off, reminding everyone why they are five-time champions. 235 for 5 in their 20 overs, and no batsman breached 50 runs. There's been a lot of drama, safe to say, in Mumbai Indians. Hardik Pandya trying to hug Rohit, getting rejected. Fans booing. Sanjay Manjrekar having to step in. I like Sanjay Manjrekar's arc. He seems to be in a let's maintain discipline kind of arc. Also encourages the young players. It's a good one. Anyway, I digress. But the Brotherhood of Mumbai shone through in this innings, with all the batters sharing the Delhi loot equally. Romario Shepherd came out at the end, and he was the most benevolent one. Only took 10 balls for his 39. Sky came back, but decided to kind of sit out on this feast. He was like, not really hungry today. I'll score next time. Um, Aksar did pull off. He kind of snatched one out of the air. That was a pretty. It's been an IPL of catches. There have been some good ones. Um, the Delhi innings, in fact, was a commendable show. Right, like they did pretty well. Tristan Stubbs, god damn, that innings was pretty damn good. And Prithvi Shaw also, Tristan Stubbs, 71 runs of 25 balls. I'm supposed to be the like talking about the stats here, but I keep getting carried away with glorifying these players. Anyway, Prithvi Shaw, 66 of 40 balls, and Abhishek Pural came back and scored a pretty good knock, 41 of 31. Gerald Kotze stat padded a little bit, took some wickets, kind of down the order, 4 for 34. Yeah, Bumrah scorched. Who did Bumrah scotch? Prithvi Shaw? Yeah, I think he scotched
Pretty
him.
sure. Pretty sure.
That was
Yep.
a pretty mighty
Yep.
Yorker as usual.
Throwback
Expected.
to the throwback to the test series where Pope was at the receiving end, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, this was a pretty good start to the Super Sunday. Mumbai gets a win under their column. Yeah, is this ominous signs, BG? I don't know.
Possibly, until you factor in they played a team who's probably worse than them. Quite. I mean, if the table were to reflect that, you would. I mean, if the table reflects that, then that's kind of the argument, right? But no, I think to your point, much needed win, right, for Mumbai. It's been a season of turbulence, right, so far, and so it was nice to see. And I'm curious, by the way, we should probably look this up sometime soon, but has there ever been an innings where, you know, a team has scored the runs they scored, 234, and nobody hit like a 50, right? There are a bunch of 40s and 30s, but I just find that fascinating because usually we talk about one or two big knocks, right? But yeah, anyway, no, I think Rohit and Ishan Kishan really gave them the start they needed, right? Quick fire 40s, both of them, until Aksar uh, Aksar got one quicker one to beat Rohit Sharma when he charged down the wicket and got him bowled, and then Ishan Kishan, he took the stunner that you just mentioned, right? And I thought for a while it did look like Delhi were on course to restrict Mumbai to about maybe around the 190 to 200 mark, which again would it was still a good total, but given how true the Wankhede surface is, Delhi would have backed themselves a lot more than what sort of what they ended up chasing or having to chase, right? So, but then Tim David and Romario Shepherd absolutely went berserk. The last 4 overs, by the way, yielded 84 runs. So, and not to mention the last over from Andrik Nokia, which yielded 32 runs, I believe.
Man,
Yeah.
this is such a solid roast of Nokia.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Andrik, but something's not working out. And, it's funny because we just mentioned a little earlier that he's been struggling at the death, right? And I mean, he just gave 32 runs in the last over. But it's just unreal power, right? So many of these Caribbean boys, they just have incredible power. Bottom hand comes into play and they're just able to whip balls at ease, right? So it becomes very difficult to bowl to them. You need to get your length spot on, which clearly they didn't, right?
Hey, you
And
think
so
West Indies dark horse this T20 World Cup?
I can never rule
Can't rule
them
them
out.
out.
Can never rule them out. They're just bunch of. I mean, I don't want to be reductive and say they're a bunch of power haters, but in some of the smaller boundaries, it's very difficult to contain them, right?
Mhm.
And so you can just never rule them out. Versus in a format like Test cricket, which probably requires a lot more consistency, right? But yeah, that's that's for another time. But I think to come back to the chase, right? I think David Warner failed early, and I think Prithvi Shaw did start fairly cautiously. Wasn't quite feeling it, but he gradually got himself into the he gradually built up the innings, right, and played a couple of good shots off Piyush Chawla to really get going, right. And he was supported well, I guess, by Abhishek Porel, although I do feel like Abhishek Porel's innings was a little too slow for my liking,
Mhm.
right? And ultimately, I think that was one of the key reasons why they found themselves, always significantly behind the asking rate, right? And a gem of a knock again, by the way, by Tristan Stubbs. Unfortunately, I just think he entered the fray maybe a little too late for my liking. I know he did come in at number 4, but he also probably didn't get enough strike, right, to truly make a difference because in the last few overs, I believe the last 2 overs, although it was significantly hard at that point, he only got to face 2 or 3 of the balls. And so, and given the rate at which he was striking, you feel like, a slightly less stiff target would have probably been, it could have been anyone's game right at that point. But very, very promising guy, did really, really well recently, right, in the SA20 league as well.
Mhm.
So this is somebody to look out for. I've always loved South African cricket and the talent that they produce. So that's something to look forward to, even for the international team as well, right? And I think Bumrah continues to amaze, right? He has the ability to produce absolute magical balls out of nowhere, and I think kudos to him for the ball to Prithvi Shaw. We don't see that too often, right? Nobody would have played that. I mean, I'm pretty convinced, right? So the one last thing I will say though is the worrying thing for Delhi is I don't think they've gotten their balance right, because I don't think a team that has Lalit Yadav coming in at number seven is a good sign. Speaks to lack of balance in the team and not quite finding the right combinations. So that's something they need to sort out as soon as possible, in addition to their death bowling.
Yeah, definitely some tinkering required. Delhi is amongst the teams that's giving RCB company at the bottom, not really where you want to be. It could have been. It looked ominous with Tristan Stubbs and Rishabh Pant there towards the end, but it wasn't to be.
Mhm.
Well, this leads us to the final game of this week and of the Super Sunday. LSG GT, um, LSG playing at home. They GT. I thought GT did a pretty good job. Gujarat did a pretty good job restricting LSG because they have a pretty strong batting lineup. They kept KL Rahul down to just about run a ball, and now I am sure he's going to have tons of critics at his throat again after this. Uh, Stoinis was dropped by Rashid Khan. They didn't make it that easy for themselves. Um, did Gujarat, but that was a good innings from Stoinis. He got to 58. After that, he put on about 20 runs after he was dropped. And Nicholas Puran, he's been doing it all season. Gave them the solid finish, got them to 165. Uh, yeah, not a lot of decent performances as far as the bowlers go. Rashid Khan, as we've talked about, hasn't really made the impact that you would expect from him. Although fairly economical, it's just the expectations that are like much higher when it comes to Rashid Khan. Sai Sudarshan, man, I don't know how many times I've said Sai Sudarshan's name in all of these. He's literally in every summary of every game. This guy is such a monster when it comes to his average. I think we talked about how he always he gets beyond two figures. He's almost never been dismissed in the single figures. It's just a fantastic showing from him, but unfortunately, there was not much from a lot of other people. Nobody came to the party. Rahul Tewatia did pretty well towards the end. Did score a good 30 of 25, not the quickest. Could have been a little faster maybe. But so GT only managed to get 130. It was sadly only the Sai Sudarshan show for the most part. So Yash Thakur did pretty well on the LSG side. Cleaned up the tail, a little bit of stat padding, I would have to say, but 5 wickets has to be commended. So good job. So Krunal Pandya did also pretty well. Yeah, what did you think of the wrap up of the week, the weekly wind up game?
No, yeah. I think you said whatever needed to be said. I think there was an element of slowness, right, to the pitch.
Mhm.
I think after Quinton de Kock, I think Umesh Yadav did really well, by the way, to get the 2 wickets early doors, right. By the way, Padikkal has some serious introspection to do, considering this is, I think, the fourth time in a row he's gotten out for single digits, right, in his new franchise. So a lot of thinking needs to go on there, a lot of introspection. So, given the early dismissal of De Kock and Padikkal, that's when, KL and Stoinis got together. It was still pretty tough. I know a lot of people do tend to target KL for, the strike rate. And I don't think he did himself any favors today, right? 33 of 31, pretty painstaking knock. Wasn't at his most fluent, but I also think a part of that can be attributed to the fact that it was a tough pitch. To be totally honest with you, Stoinis never got going as well. I know he did, hit the 50. But having said that, I do feel like, some of his boundaries came in that one over. I think it was the over prior to the over he actually got dismissed. So, yeah, and I mean, to your point, I think Puran did come up with a few, late cameo, right, which we've seen throughout this IPL. But even he did find it a little tough, right? early doors, at least in his innings. But he was able to propel them to 163, which on the face of it isn't generally a great total. But if I'm being totally honest with you, given the way the wicket was playing, right, it did look like it was going to be a challenging total. No, all things considered. And yeah, really looking at the chase, it did look very promising for Gujarat. I think they were 54 for no loss in the first 6 overs, so they definitely made use of the power play. Right, we've seen Gill and Sudarshan. We've seen their consistency right over the IPL so far, and today was no different. Both of them got off to good starts, and then Yash Thakur got the also important wicket of Shubman Gill, right, bowling him whilst he was attempting a flick shot. And, that really opened the floodgates, right, as far as LSG were concerned. Top bowling display by Yash Thakur. I know he did chip in with some wickets right towards the end, but having said that, he varied his pace incredibly well, right? Was bowling a lot of short bouncers, short bouncers. Bouncers are short. He was bowling a lot. I meant to say slow bouncers,
As
but he
opposed
bowled
to the full ones.
as opposed to the first. But he did bowl a lot of slow bouncers, which fooled a lot of sort of the Gujarat batsmen, and also made that like sort of induce the false shot, right? By the way, for those of you who haven't watched Ravi Bishnoi's cotton ball dismissal of Kane Williamson, I suggest you do so as soon as possible. Incredible catch. We saw Aksar take a one-handed catch to dismiss Ishan Kishan right in the earlier match, but this catch, in my opinion, beat even that one. Incredible reflexes by Bishnoi, and sent back Kane Williamson, who if he had gotten going, there's no telling what would have happened, right? Because he's capable of playing the steady role, right, whilst others around him go berserk. But all in all, top performance, bowling performance by LSG. I have to also call out Krunal Pandya as well for his 3 wickets for barely anything. Right, it did look ominous when Mayank Yadav hobbled off after 1 over, right? Side strain. It's a weird one, right? Because he bowled that first over and he did bowl a single ball above 142, I believe, which is still freaking fast. But then you're asking yourself, oh, something's not right. But Krunal Pandya later went on to say, I mean, I think he's okay. So fingers crossed if you're a fan, right? That, everything is well. Pranav, I'm just going to ask you a quick stat. I'm just going to
Mhm.
ask you about a stat, and I
You're
want
gonna
you to
ask me, you're quizzing me on a stat.
quizzing you on a stat. Yeah, I'm going to
Okay.
quiz you on a stat. So I'm going to, so LSG, the last 17 times they have
Mhm.
defended a total, the last 17 times. Can you guess what their record is in those 17 games? Win loss.
Oh, the last 17
The
times that
last
they've
17
defended.
times that they've defended a total. Can you guess?
It sure as hell isn't 100%, is it?
No, it isn't 100%. Fine.
Okay.
And
I
and let
figure
me,
that's definitely a near impossible feat. What,
yeah.
80%? Is it high or is it never?
So
It's
So
low.
in the last 17 games that they've defended a total, they've won 15, they've lost one, there's one no result. How
Hmm.
incredible is that? So that's almost a
Pretty
90%
close.
success rate. Yeah. And I
Pretty
mean,
close to 100%.
and to be fair, right, given that we've seen a lot of teams prefer chasing, right, like these days more often than not, to have that kind of a record is incredible, right? So shout out to LSG for the great bowling effort and, the win.
Yeah. LSG flipping the script on what is normally the format of how to win an IPL game, right? But yeah, like
Mhm.
you said, good news for Mayank Yadav fans. I mean, if you were wondering if you happened to miss the initial overs, he did have a little side niggle, but
Yeah. Yeah.
he seems to be good. He seems to be fine, which is good news. So I think all that's left to do is see who are the winners of this week. What's the table shaping up like? Um, Not a lot has changed. But who do you think is like sitting really, really pretty right now? Surprise,
Well,
surprise.
I think RR and KKR have, laid out the gauntlet, right, for the rest of the teams. Incredible starts by both. KKR, amassing huge totals, right? Most dangerous batsmen out there, arguably. And RR are just so well rounded, right? The people who weren't necessarily in the best of form, in the first week are now slowly getting back into form. If you think of Jeswal, if Jeswal gets into form, then that's both their openers and then their middle order in form, and then their bowling's obviously doing incredibly well. So that's scary signs, right? Ahead for the other teams. And LSG have also been very, very commendable so far, right? Just the solitary loss. And then there are a couple of teams with mixed results, right? In the middle. I'll let you decide if we want to cover those teams or we want to get straight to the ones right at the bottom.
Yeah, I think CSK not expected for them to be here. Although they do sometimes have a shaky middle season and end up like pulling clutch towards the end. But definitely they'll be looking to come back in the following week. SRH, honestly, I think they do seem like a pretty strong team. They have some solid performances all around here. Punjab, wow, that chase was something, man. Like that should give that dressing room a lot of confidence. Very good team chasing also. Chase 206 times, which is the most by any IPL team. So definitely some good signs for them. Um, and the bottom is not looking great, is it, BG? I think the
Uh,
only positive, sort of note there is for Mumbai, who got their first win and a big win at that, propelling them from the bottom to, third from the bottom, which is better than being at the bottom. Which is something we can say about RCB as well. I guess we're not at the bottom. Uh, but yeah, like who do you think has the biggest turnaround out of the bottom feeders?
It's such a tough one because there are such obvious flaws in so many of these teams, right? But having said that, I think with the Mumbai one, it's a bit of an interesting one, just given the fact that they are notoriously slow starters, right? And it's a funny one because it's happened so many times now, right? Where we've seen these slow starts, and then they're a team that's capable of going on a six-match win streak, right? Because that's how they're just conditioned to win right at the right time. So I am looking for Mumbai to make a significant move as the tournament progresses, right? And at least that's what I believe. As for the bottom two, RCB and DC, I think the table doesn't lie, right? At the end of the day, these are the two teams that haven't quite figured out the right balance, right? They haven't figured out the right balance. They don't have like the entire team is not contributing, right? They're unfortunately relying on select individuals at specific points of time, and unfortunately that hasn't quite been enough to get over the line, right, in any of the matches. And so they have a lot of thinking to do. Maybe there are a couple of talented players in both teams sitting on the bench, so maybe it's worth considering making those changes now before it's too late, because we're obviously approaching crunch time, right? We're approaching sort of the middle phase of the season, which is kind of the moving phase, right, if you will. So but the team I'm actually looking out for is Mumbai. It's going to be interesting to see how they turn this around, or whether they turn this around.
Yeah, I agree. They've gotten a significant boost with Sky being back. I think once the drama sort of settles and the noise is gone, like this is a very strong team, and there's no two ways about that. So the the arc is set for Mumbai. A pretty phenomenal comeback could be in store. So, with regards to next week, are there any ties that particularly stand out? I mean, speaking of Mumbai, RCB is going to play Mumbai. That doesn't sound great. It's an away game, which is probably better. Our record at the Chinnaswamy definitely isn't good. But any other games really catch your fancy?
Hmm. I mean, MIRCB is always great, no matter what the result, right? I just feel like we've lost. We've obviously lost more than we've won, sort of against Mumbai. But having said that, there have been some absolute classics, right, over the years. Um, Sorry, guys, I need to reminisce, but I remember the match where De Villiers hit 133 or 59, where we went to the Wankhede and we hit 250 odd for one, and they still hit 200.
I
Surprise,
think
surprise.
still standing the highest run
Yeah,
partnership
highest
in
partnership, him and King Kohli.
King.
Yeah, but we generally tend to play them well, although we haven't really beaten them a whole lot. But I am looking forward to that game. And maybe there's the MICSK game. That's at the end of the week. I mean, a lot of these games are going to be great games, but I think Battle of the Champs, right? MICSK always delivers. They've played some absolute classics over the years as well, so I'm looking forward to see how that game pans out, right? And really, there's obviously going to be an interest in sort of how the table toppers do from here, right? I think the CSK KKR game on I believe it's tomorrow. The CSK KKR game is also going to be a bit of an interesting one because who's going to stop the KKR juggernaut as things stand, right? And who's going to stop the all-round ability of the RR team when they play Gujarat? That's going to when they play Gujarat and Punjab, I believe they play next week. So we shall see if we continue to have an undefeated team, come the end of this upcoming week, or whether there's just a lot more chaos in the table.
Yeah, it's going to be tough going for KKR to keep that record, especially at the Chepauk, knowing CSK's
Mhm.
record there. But yeah, like you said, there are exciting fixtures. Mumbai CSK, definitely looking out for that one. So there you've heard it, folks. Bhargav has given us the top ones, and those are pretty juicy. Um, well, on that note, thank you all for watching. If you like this video, give us a like and maybe even a subscribe. We have a lot more coming to you from this IPL and beyond. Don't hesitate to leave a comment. We'd love to hear from you. Besides that, we hope you have a wonderful week ahead and happy viewing of all the IPL drama, which it never fails to deliver. And we'll see you next week. Peace.